Welcome to Human Monsters. Cannibal number 1, Armen Meiwes. Armen Meiwes was born on December 1st, 1961, in Kassel, Germany. Armen's notoriety as the so-called Rotenberg cannibal was not something anybody would have anticipated had they borne witness to his upbringing. He grew up in a middle-class family. His father was a police officer, and his mother was a homemaker. His parents emphasized the values of discipline and order, very German values. Clearly, his criminal tendencies were more a product of nature than nurture. Armen developed a passion for computers at a very early age, and it would become an asset in more ways than one in his adult years. Logging onto the internet years later would provide him with a means to meet new people. Though Armen had the typical disposition of a young boy, unbeknownst to his peers and family, it was a facade. Underneath it all was a fascination with the macabre and grotesque. He was primarily a loner, and when he was alone, he would indulge in morbid fantasies. A watershed moment arose in the life of young Armen when he discovered a copy of the Cannibal Cookbook. Though the book was most likely written from the standpoint of gallows humor, it made a different kind of impact on Armen. It was a graphic manual guide on how to properly prepare human flesh for consumption. Something about the content of the book opened the floodgates within him and would inform much of what he dreamed about. From there, Armen led a bifurcated life. On one hand, he led a very conventional existence at home and was above average in intelligence, but he was beset by constant disturbing thoughts and fantasies. Throughout adolescence, while his peers were waging a battle against acne and the politics of social interaction at school, Armen Meiwes was consumed by thoughts about eating human flesh. He also developed a passion for horror and slasher films. He was open in his fascination with violence and gore, vocal enough that it became a trademark of sorts. It didn't win him many friends. He would even draw pictures of murder and gore and write stories containing scenarios that described people being killed, gored, and eaten. He also came across to his peers as lacking in empathy. It was another trait that set him apart and made it difficult to impossible for him to form friendships. He was very much a square peg. He felt like an outsider in all of society due to his appetite for human flesh. He also wasn't driven to succeed in school. Before Armen would inflict harm upon others, it was self-directed. He cut himself. He attempted to sever his penis. Some people who cut themselves will tell you that it's a way of creating a manageable crisis to distract themselves from one that is overwhelming them. It can't be easy realizing that you are possessed of an urge to kill people and eat them. It could be downright frightening. Jeffrey Dahmer drank heavily in his high school years to cope with his disconcerting impulses, even going as far as to bring bottles of hard liquor to class. Armen continued to consume all media that described or depicted violence, murder, and, especially, cannibalism. However, reading about cannibalism or watching it in a movie would mean being a spectator. That would never be enough. He wanted his experience with cannibalism to be tangible, tactile. He fantasized about meeting someone who could help him act on his cannibalistic desire. He took to the internet to find the perfect victim. This was the age of chat rooms, and people would congregate in chat rooms of every conceivable interest. He adopted an alias, Frank. That way he could explore his twisted desires safely from behind the cloak of anonymity, and if anybody found his proclivities too extreme and disturbing, they could simply move on. He indicated in his profile exactly what kind of person he was offline and exactly what kind of shared experience he wanted to have with another. He deliberately chose taboo-related chat rooms for this reason. He was not seeking a victim by this point. He wanted a partner who would offer themselves up like an Easter ham. They had to want to be devoured. His overtures as a cannibal were not well received by most. Most of the people who populated those chat rooms were just indulging in fantasies and had no interest or wherewithal to explore them in real life. He was frequently rejected, regarded with suspicion, and feared. Revulsion and horror were the most common reactions to the expression of his fantasies. His attempts to find a partner for cannibalism encountered skepticism, accusations, and even threats. He was even considered a dangerous man, a threat to society at large. None of these reactions dissuaded him, and he was more determined than ever to have the right person over for dinner. It took a long time and a lot of searching, but Armen finally found a chat room populated by people as diabolical and depraved as him. Some of them were only possessed of a morbid curiosity, while others were more serious about their desire to consume human flesh. He took a tricky approach, for he wanted to be totally open about his desire to eat someone, but careful to conceal his true identity. If he was going to eat someone in real life, he would have to reveal himself somehow. There was no doubt in the minds of the people he met in the chat rooms that he was not only serious about committing cannibalism, but had given the act a great deal of thought. Whether it was the logistics of it, the allure, the emotional and psychological impact, it was not just a momentary impulse soon to be abandoned. He probably even knew that, according to third world cannibals, human meat tastes like pork. He even went as far as to offer himself up to others who wished to engage in cannibalism. The chat rooms became the only places where he ever felt he belonged. The people who shared his obsession with cannibalism were kindred spirits. One day, Armen wrote this post in an online forum. I am looking for a well-built young man who wants to be killed and eaten by me. If you think this ad would never have gotten a reply, you would be wrong. It caught and retained the eye of 43-year-old Bernd Jürgen Brandes. At the time, he was deeply depressed and saw no value to living out the rest of his life, regardless of his medically ordained expiration date, whatever it was. Getting slaughtered and eaten by Armen Meiwes appeared to him to be a better option than his bleak existence. As they got to know each other, they shared their fascination with death, gore, cannibalism, and other macabre topics. Amid all this discussion, they settled on an agreement. They exchanged photos, which only stoked their desires to eat and be eaten. They began to lay out their plans in detail for how they would approach cannibalism. There would be no nasty surprises for Bernd. Armen prepared for the cannibalistic act by renovating the slaughterhouse portion of his farmhouse. He bought butcher's tools so that he could approach the act with the utmost of efficiency. Bernd made preparations of his own. He made arrangements for his funeral and wrote a letter to be read by his family. Armen had experience as a butcher due to his family's farming activities, so he promised Bernd a clean kill. Armen and Bernd planned out their offline encounter in meticulous detail. They would have a pasta meal in Armen's barn before he would have Bernd for dessert. A butcher's block was situated in the basement. Armen purchased a video camera to capture the murder and consumption of Bernd's remains for posterity. Make no bones about it, this act was meant to be theatrical. The following is a transcript of an online chat between Armen and Bernd. Note, they used pseudonyms. Armen is Antrophagus and Bernd is Cater99. Cater99. Hello, Antrophagus. Hi, Cater. What do you do professionally that you are up so late at night? Cater99. I can't sleep well anymore because of our meeting. Antrophagus. That's a sensible reason. Yesterday I was incredibly tired. It was a stressful day. Cater99. I'm in telecommunications. Antrophagus. Oh, that sounds interesting. Cater99. I believe you. Antrophagus. I'm looking forward to our meeting. It will definitely be really cool. Cater99. I want it to be. I hope it'll be really cool. Are you setting an alarm clock? Antrophagus. It's only a few days until March 9th. Cater99. Still, I would have rather met you yesterday and felt your teeth. Antrophagus. One can't have everything. There's still some time before you really feel my teeth. Cater99. I hardly know what to expect. Have you slaughtered a man before? Antrophagus. Unfortunately, only in my dreams, but in my thoughts I do it every night. Cater99. So, I'm the first? You have eaten human flesh before, or you haven't? Antrophagus. No, you don't exactly find it in the supermarket, unfortunately. Cater99. How do you know if it will taste good to you, or that the blood won't make you sick? Antrophagus. I'm readying myself with my dreams. Once I was so excited, I grabbed a needle and drew my own blood so I could drink it. Cater99. And your blood? It tasted good to you? Antrophagus. It was quite tasty. Once I was drilling some holes, and the drill slipped right into my hand. That was a real treat. Blood is the juice of life. It contains everything a person needs for nutrition. Cater 99. Then I hope you won't wilt, that you can really see it through without a problem. Antrophagus. To bite into your penis will certainly not be easy. Living flesh is somewhat more resistant than fried. But one thing is certain, our dream will be fulfilled. Cater 99. But there's not so much in it as there is in muscle. Antrophagus. Yeah, but the penis is principally a spongy material filled with blood. Cater 99. For both our sakes, I hope that's true. I hope you have also already thought about what's to be done with the rest. Fulfilling the dream shouldn't become a nightmare for you. No one will know where I've disappeared to. Antrophagus. After you're dead, I'll take you out and expertly carve you up, except for a pair of knees and some fleshy trash, skin, cartilage, tendons. There won't be much of you left. Cater 99. There will be a good bit, like the knees. I hope you have a good hiding place for them. Antrophagus. I'll dry out the knees and grind them up soon after. Cater 99. Okay, they're good as fertilizer. I heard that once. I see you've thought about it. Good. Sounds like I'm the first. Antrophagus. And you won't be the last, hopefully. I've already considered catching a young person from the street, but I would rather kill only those who want to be killed. Cater 99. That also doesn't sound bad, but yeah, seeing as it's not so totally legal, this is, in my eyes, better than yanking somebody directly off the street. Antrophagus. Exactly. I'll do it if it were legal. Despite their months of planning, nothing could really prepare Bernd for what he was about to undertake. There was tension in the air, though he also felt trepidation. It's not every day that you drive to a man's barn so he can kill you and eat you. Being suicidal for months hadn't prepared Bernd for this. Armen was dressed in a white butcher's apron. As the men broke bread over their meal of wine and pasta, Bernd gave himself over to a feeling of surrender. After all, that's what he was there to do. Later that evening, Armen led Bernd down to the basement. He was cold and emotionally detached. When they descended to the bowels of the barn, there was a stench of putrefaction in the air. It was most likely remnants of animals that had been slaughtered, but it gave Bernd a chilling preview of what he was to become. He had second thoughts and tried to leave, but Armen restrained him. Armen, with Bernd in tow, made a beeline for the butcher's block. His emotions were a mix of hesitation and fear. Armen didn't wish to beat around the proverbial bush. He slit Bernd's throat with a knife. Bernd screamed at first, but as blood gushed from the wound, all he could do was gargle. That was phase 1. Phase 2. Dismemberment. Armen was like a surgeon, meticulously severing Bernd's limbs and internal organs. He severed Bernd's penis. He proceeded to cook other parts of Bernd's anatomy while capturing it on video. After Armen was arrested, he portrayed his actions in a different light. He claimed he felt regret and fear. He said he tried to get rid of the evidence. Armen decided that the best way to rid his property of the evidence was to dispose of it piecemeal. He had the tools, a saw, a cleaver, and a meat grinder. He placed every small piece of bone into a plastic bag. He would label each bag as the type of flesh it contained. Aside from documenting the event on video, he also kept records by writing about the process on paper. He buried the bags in a section of forest he found to be suitably isolated so that nobody would accidentally find them. The murder began to take a toll on Armen's mental health. While he had once been exhilarated, he was now guilty and full of dread. The line between sanity and madness was frequently blurred for him by this point. March 2003. A member of a message board on the internet became intrigued by a posting consisting of an appeal for a male volunteer to be murdered and eaten. Though the people who congregated at this message board shared fantasies about such scenarios, they seldom took it beyond the realm of fantasy. The man who placed that ad was serious. That is what the police assumed initially. They had come across many such fantasies online, and after a while they no longer took them seriously. They simply did not consider the imagination to be valid as a crime scene. However, members of the forum urged police to act, and so an investigation was launched. They took note of such details as the username, timestamps, and IP addresses. All law enforcement agencies have experts on cybercrime, and even in 2001, they were able to track somebody down in the virtual world of the internet. Using this method, they eventually traced the user to a small German town called Rotenburg an der Fulda, where Armen Meiwes lived. The police seized a computer in Armen's residence, and within a hidden folder, they found the incriminating footage. The very act, in lurid detail, was laid out before the viewer's eyes. May 2006. Armen Meiwes was found guilty of murder and cannibalism and sentenced to life in prison. Cannibal number 2, Mark Lonsky. Christmas Eve 2019. This story's victim is named Kevin Bacon. The fact that he shares a name with the actor is a complete coincidence, of course. Besides, this Kevin Bacon was only 25 years old at the time. He was a hairdresser and lived in Swartz Creek, Michigan. While other men his age were settling down for Christmas with their families, he took to the dating app Grindr with a Yule log in mind, only it wasn't the kind of Yule log that is made of cake and frosting. It was more the kind of thing you might find beneath a mistletoe belt buckle. Kevin met a man on Grindr named Mark Lonsky. He was 50 years old and lived in Bennington Township. Kevin left his home that night around 5:20 p.m. with visions of penises dancing in his head. He sent a text to his roommate Michelle Myers short of an hour later to let her know that he wasn't sure when he would return home. Christmas Day. Kevin Bacon was reported missing. Christmas Eve was the last night he was seen alive. His car and cell phone were found in the parking lot of a shopping center. When the police tapped into his phone, they used the Grindr app to track down Mark Lonsky as the last person to see Kevin Bacon alive. Mark Lonsky would have come across as normal to anybody who would have met him. He was a chemist and had been married with 4 children. He made a 6-figure salary. You could almost fall asleep listening to a description of the man and his life. In 2013, though, having divorced his wife, he got remarried, that time to a man. His husband was clearly unaware of his dark side, for he once said to the media, "I didn't think that he would ever hurt me." Lonsky was a troubled man, however. In 2010 and 2012, he was diagnosed with severe, recurrent, and chronic major depression with psychotic features, adjustment disorder with depression and anxiety, with paranoid schizophrenia and borderline personality traits. According to his ex-wife, whenever he failed to take his medication, he would, quote, watch torture movies. Kevin Bacon wasn't the only victim of Mark Lonsky. On October 10th, 2019, 48-year-old James Carlson called 911 to report that he escaped from Lonsky's basement. This after he managed to cut himself free of chains with a butcher knife. Carlson said he traveled all the way from New York to have sex with Lonsky. A month later, one of Lonsky's neighbors encountered a man covered in blood on his front porch. The man said to him, "He wants to hurt me." Lonsky showed up shortly thereafter, as did the state police. But they did not make an arrest. December 27th, when the police arrived at Lonsky's home and informed him about why, he let them into his home without protest. The police found Bacon's body dead, mutilated, and hanging upside down from the ceiling. Lonsky freely admitted that he stabbed Bacon to death, castrated him, and ate from his remains. Lonsky's public defender soon realized that his client was not playing with a full deck. To quote Doug Corwin, he was claiming he was of royal family lineage. Despite his history with mental illness, Lonsky was found competent to stand trial. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Cannibal number 3, William Seabrook. William Seabrook was a reporter for the New York Times. He was curious about what human flesh tastes like, and he felt that, as a subject, it was newsworthy. So he came into a hunk of human meat from an institution called the Sorbonne. He insisted he only did it in the name of research. The flesh was taken from the body of an otherwise healthy man who was killed in an accident. Seabrook described the delicacy in the following terms. It was like good, fully developed veal, not young, but not yet beef. It was very definitely like that, and it was not like any other meat I had ever tasted. It was so nearly like good, fully developed veal that I think no person with a palate of ordinary, normal sensitiveness could distinguish it from veal. It was mild, good meat with no other sharply defined or highly characteristic taste, such as, for instance, goat, high game, and pork have. The rump steak was slightly tougher than prime veal, a little stringy, but not too tough or stringy to be agreeably edible. The loin roast, from which I cut and ate a central slice, was tender, and in color, texture, smell, as well as taste, strengthened my certainty that of all the meats we habitually know, veal is the one meat to which this meat is accurately comparable. Cannibal number 4, the cannibals of the Holodomor famine. Cannibalism is not just common among serial killers and jungle-dwelling savages. Between 1932 and 1933 in Holodomor, Ukraine, many turned to cannibalism to keep themselves fed. It was so common that the moral objections were digested along with the flesh of those who didn't survive the famine. To quote a historian named Timothy Snyder, survival was a moral as well as a physical struggle. A woman doctor wrote to a friend in June 1933 that she had not yet become a cannibal, but was, quote, not sure that I shall not be one by the time my letter reaches you, close quote. The good people died first. Those who refused to steal or to prostitute themselves died. Those who gave food to others died. Those who refused to eat corpses died. Those who refused to kill their fellow man died. At least 2,505 people were sentenced for cannibalism in the years 1932 and 1933 in Ukraine, though the actual number of cases was certainly much higher. Cannibal number 5, the Kazakhstan cannibals. At around the same time as the Ukrainian famine was an incident of mass starvation in Kazakhstan. It took place between 1930 and 1933. Some people ate meat from corpses. Others killed and ate from their victims. Villagers, quote, discovered people among them who ate body parts and killed children. One survivor recalled how, on more than one occasion, he saw, quote, a little foot floating up, or hand, or a child's heel, in cauldrons boiling over a fire. Cannibal number 6, the Natsino cannibals. May 1933. Approximately 6,700 Russian prisoners were deported to a Siberian island called Natsino with little in the way of supplies like food, clothing, shelter, or tools. This situation led to violence, disease, and cannibalism. Cannibal number 7, Alonzo Robinson. Alonzo Robinson was born in 1895 in Cleveland, Mississippi. December 9th, 1934. Robinson broke into the home of Aurelius B. Turner and his wife, who was pregnant. Aurelius was sitting in a chair reading a newspaper when he was caught unawares and struck on the head with an axe. Robinson finished him off by shooting him with his gun. Robinson struck Mrs. Turner 5 times with his axe. He mutilated both husband and wife and kept portions of Mrs. Turner's flesh. He reportedly struck one of their children with his axe and left it for dead. The other child was not harmed. When Robinson was tracked down by authorities to his post office box, he attempted to overtake the officers when he drew his gun, but they overpowered him. Among the items found when he was searched were Mr. Turner's pocket watch, a packet of human hair matching Mrs. Turner's, and a package containing a portion of human meat, which had been salted and cured and featured impressions from human teeth. Oh, and he was arrested and convicted years before the Turner incident for digging up a girl's corpse. Cannibal number 8. The cannibalism of the concentration and death camps of Croatia. At this point, Croatia was a Nazi puppet state governed by an organization called the Ustasha. They were responsible for the genocide of the Serbs. Many survivors have reported that the Ustashas drank blood from the slitted corpses of their victims. Cannibal number 9. Japanese cannibals during the invasion of China. Many Japanese troops committed acts of cannibalism among their own, on dead opponents, and even on Allied prisoners of war. September 1942. The daily rations given to the Japanese soldiers consisted of 800 grains of rice and some tinned meat. By December, the rations were reduced in volume down to 50 grams. Enter the cannibal. To quote historian Yuki Tanaka, cannibalism was often a systematic activity conducted by whole squads and under the command of officers. Often within this circumstance, hunks of flesh would be cut from a living person. To quote Indian POW Lance Naik Hatam Ali, the Japanese started selecting prisoners, and every day one prisoner was taken out and killed and eaten by the soldiers. I personally saw this happen, and about 100 prisoners were eaten at this place by the Japanese. The remainder of us were taken to another spot 50 miles, 80 kilometers away, where 10 prisoners died of sickness. At this place, the Japanese again started selecting prisoners to eat. Those selected were taken to a hut where their flesh was cut from their bodies while they were alive, and they were thrown into a ditch where they later died. Cannibal number 10. More Japanese cannibalism. 1945. Some Japanese fed some Koreans who were forced into slavery what they told them was whale meat. In truth, they were being fed flesh from dead Koreans. When the Koreans realized what had been done, they staged a rebellion, though they were swiftly repressed, resulting in 55 deaths. Cannibal number 11. The Yom Kippur War cannibal. It's no secret to anybody who follows the news that Israel and the other Middle Eastern countries don't play well together. I'm not taking sides. I'm just establishing my perspective as an outsider. December 1973. The Yom Kippur War was well underway. Syria's defense minister, Mustafa Tlass, issued the Medal of the Republic to one particular Syrian soldier. What brave and noble act did the soldier in question commit to earn the medal? He murdered 28 Israeli prisoners with an axe and ate some of the flesh from one of the corpses. To quote Tlass, He did not use the military weapon to kill them, but utilized the axe to decapitate them. He then devoured the neck of one of them and ate it in front of the people. I am proud of his courage and bravery, for he actually killed by himself 28 Jews by count and cash. Cannibal number 12, Nikolai Dzhumagaliev. I'm not good at pronouncing these Russian names. Nikolai Metal Fang Espolovich Dzhumagaliev was born on November 15, 1952, in what eventually became known as Kazakhstan. He went to railway school and was later conscripted into the Soviet Army in 1970 at the age of 18. He specialized in chemical defense. Following this phase of his life, he tried to become a professional driver and to enroll in university, but failed at both. Following this, he traveled throughout the Soviet Union. Throughout his nomadic existence, he worked in disparate trades, including sailor, forwarder, electrician, and bulldozer operator. In 1977, he returned to Kazakhstan to work as a firefighter. There was a fire brewing in his groin as he contracted syphilis around that time, not to mention trichomoniasis. Russian brothels were notorious for being hotbeds of STDs. Nikolai was a very organized murderer who planned his killings well in advance and with great caution to avoid detection as much as possible. He committed his first murder in January 1979. He killed a woman who was traveling along a rural path outside of Uzinagash. Her corpse was found, but the identity of the perpetrator was not determined at the time, so the case went cold. Nikolai killed 5 more people in 1979. On August 21st, he got very drunk and accidentally shot a fellow fireman, or at least that is how he explained it. He was arrested for that incident. At the Serbsky Center, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. In just under a year, he was discharged back into Uzinagash. Before long, Nikolai committed 3 more murders. It was his 9th slaughter that led to his arrest. He invited some of his friends and their girlfriends to his domicile. He killed one of the males and proceeded to dismember him in isolation in one of the other rooms. The rest of the guests began to wonder what became of the 2 men. When they went looking for them, they were horrified by what Nikolai was doing. They fled from the house and reported Nikolai's actions to the police. When the police arrived, they found Nikolai on his knees. He looked like he had been smeared with blood. The police officers were so shocked that, as stunned as they were distracted enough that Nikolai was able to escape. He ran to the mountains with nary a stitch of clothing on. He also took his hatchet with him. The next day, the police tracked him down, and he was placed under arrest. Due to his diagnosis, Nikolai was incarcerated in a psychiatric hospital for 8 years. He escaped, but was captured and placed back into the facility. Cannibal number 13, Jason Thornberg. Jason Allen Thornberg was born on August 27, 1980, in Arizona. 2021, the Fort Worth murders. Within the span of 1 week in September, Thornberg murdered 3 people. From there, he dismembered their corpses at an inn in Euless, Fort Worth, Texas. You see, Thornberg was a very religious man, and the notion of committing sacrifices to God came to him as he went about reading and interpreting the Bible. The exact date of the murders has never been publicly revealed, but speculation has it that it happened at some point between September 15th and 17th. His first victim was 42-year-old David Lores, who occupied the same room as Thornberg in the inn. Allegedly, Thornberg slit David's throat, and once he was assured of his demise, he chopped his cadaver into bite-sized pieces. He ate a piece of David's heart. During the next 4 days, Thornberg murdered 2 women, 34-year-old Lauren Phillips and 33-year-old Manacruz Mathis, met their ends at his hands. According to Thornberg, he slit one of their throats. He killed the other by strangling her and stabbing her to death. After killing both women, he cut up their corpses and kept their parts in a storage bin. He ate some of their body parts. He had sex with Lauren Phillips's cadaver before butchering it. September 22nd, 2021. Having committed the 3 murders, Thornberg brought the body parts to a dumpster nearby and set fire to the bags. The fire grew out of control, and after an investigation, the trail of culpability led to Thornberg. While in custody, Jason Thornberg confessed to killing the 3 people in the dumpster, as well as to murdering an ex-girlfriend named Tanya Begay, who went missing in Arizona in 2017. He was indicted for that murder, but the investigation is still ongoing as her remains have not been found. He also confessed to murdering a former roommate named Mark Jewell by setting fire to a structure he was occupying at the time. He slit his throat, uncapped a natural gas line, and lit a candle. He was indicted for the murder and for arson. Thornberg's attorneys attempted to get him acquitted or hospitalized on the basis of his history of mental illness, but this did not sway the jury. It didn't exactly help his case that he was caught making weapons in jail. December 4th, 2024, Thornberg was sentenced to death. He currently resides on death row at the Alan B. Polonsky unit. Cannibal number 14, Tamara Samsonova. Tamara Mitrofanovna Samsonova was born on April 25, 1947, in Uzhar, Russia. She was hospitalized in psychiatric institutions 3 times during her life, and speculation had it that she may have been diagnosed as schizophrenic. After she graduated from high school, she moved to Moscow. There, she attended classes at Moscow State Linguistic University. Following her graduation, she moved to St. Petersburg. There, she married Alexei Samsonova. She worked for 16 years in the tourism and hospitality industry. 2000. Such was the year of Alexei's disappearance. His body has never been found. Speculation has it that Tamara killed him and disposed of his body, but no evidence has ever been unearthed to substantiate that theory. She personally appealed to the police to investigate his disappearance, but their efforts did not yield the desired results. April 2015. Tamara approached the police again, this time to the investigative unit of the Frozensky district in St. Petersburg. She gave them another statement about her husband's disappearance. Following her husband's disappearance, Tamara began renting an unoccupied room in her home. On September 6, 2003, she got into a heated argument with her tenant, 44-year-old Sergei Potanin. She killed him, dismembered his corpse, and dropped sections of his remains along the streets of St. Decei's Way. March 2015, Tamara met 79-year-old Valentina Nikolaevna Ulanova, who lived in her neighborhood. A mutual friend asked Valentina if she would provide shelter to Tamara while her landlord was renovating the property that contained her apartment. Valentina kindly granted this request. Now, how did Tamara repay her? She helped with housework, which was good. She enjoyed living in Valentina's apartment, so much so that when it came time for her to leave, she refused to go. Eventually, the women had a falling out, and Valentina was very blunt in informing Tamara that it was time for her to leave. The women had another row, after which Tamara poisoned Valentina with a drug called phenazepam. She crushed up several of the pills and placed them in her salad. Later that night, Tamara discovered Valentina's corpse reclined on the kitchen floor. She proceeded to dismember it with 2 knives and a saw. First, she sawed off her head, then she sawed the remainder in half. She cut it into pieces with the knives. She cut her in so many pieces that she had to make several trips outdoors as she took all the bags out of the apartment. However, some parts of Valentina's body were left in the house. July 26th. Valentina's decapitated head and most of her limbs were found wrapped in a shower curtain close to a pond in Tamara's neighborhood. Strangely, the package lay undiscovered and undisturbed for several days. July 27th, the police gained entrance to Valentina's apartment. They found traces of blood in the bathroom. Tamara was arrested immediately. December 2015, Tamara Samsonova was sentenced to compulsory treatment at a psychiatric hospital. She has been investigated for a total of 14 murders. And yes, speculation has it that she ate some of the flesh of her victims. Tamara kept a diary. This is an entry translated from Russian to English. I killed my tenant, Volodya, cut him to pieces in the bathroom with a knife, and put the pieces of his body in plastic bags and threw them away in the different parts of Frozensky district. Thank you for listening to Human Monsters. Bye for now.